What is happening out there, Roto Scouts baseball fans? Welcome to the MLB DFS Lineup Card show from Roto Scouts for Monday, the 31st of July. Almost August. Dog days of summer, most of the way through the baseball season. Only 2 months to go already. Kind of flying by, guys. I don't know. Summer, remember how summer was like? Seemed like forever when you were a kid, right? Didn't it seem like crazy long every summer when you were a kid? It was only like 8 weeks, and it seemed like it lasted forever. And now it's just like, and summer when you're an adult, it's like, oh, it's warm out. Summer starts in like May, and it seems faster. It's so weird. Anyway, what's going on, guys? Good 9-gamer on deck today. Interesting slate of MLB DFS action. I think it's a kind of fun one to talk through anyway. There's a lot of interesting spots. I think a couple spots might get overrated by the public. I think a couple of interesting spots we can attack. Coors Field game with one of the, maybe not best offenses in baseball, but certainly a group with some of the best players in baseball. I'll say that with the Padres in Coors Field. It's going to be an interesting one. I think it's a little thin on pitching. Two like premium options up top, and then like a couple mixed bag type quality options or guys who are good but in tough spots. So it'll be a fun one to talk through. Looks like we've got Chuck Deuces in the chat. Chuck asking, what is the Rotoscout logo supposed to be? An arrow pointing up? A mushroom? A penguin? Holy shit, it's a guy holding a pair of binoculars. LOL, I swear I just saw it. It's a scout. I get it. Yeah, it's a scout. He's checking things out there. Larry says, I wonder if Terry has that DVD behind him. Which DVD? George McFly from Back to the Future? Oh, I'm sure Back to the Future's back there. I don't know where in that pile it is, but I'm 100% sure I have Back to the Future. I'm sure I have the trilogy. Now you're making me wonder. Now I'm going to have to go check. I have somewhere an old Excel sheet that hasn't been updated with a lot of those. It's been added to since then. I would have to like go through and see what's not in there if I was ever to actually update it. But for a while, I was like keeping track of like the movie. I give it a genre, the director, the main stars. I don't know why. Like I was going to open a video store or something in 2015. But yeah, I just had it to have it. Matt Tomlinson's in the chat. Lone Wolf posted a good screenshot in the Discord yesterday. He won a tournament, took down like $800 or something like that. Congrats to Lone Wolf. It was always nice seeing that. I did not. He asked me if I ended up cashing. I cashed a lot of lineups, cashed, but I didn't have a great night last night. I was a little behind the curve last night, but obviously we hit on a bunch of good stuff and thought it was an interesting slate yesterday. Had some weird pitching. A bunch of different pitching spots went a little sideways on us yesterday, but good slate overall, fun time. Trey's in the chat, Lars in the chat. Who else is out there? Aloysius is here, Jake Swalls, Podigen Stoner's here, Wake and Bake Baseball from Garden City, Colorado, bitches. Trey McKelly. Think we got everybody there, so let's dive on into this one, guys. What do you think? Larry C. Yeah, it's George McFly. Marty McFly's the Marty McFly being the son. George McFly. I think the future sons of Marty were just Marty Jr., right? When he was playing himself, like the son of himself in the future. Got to get our hands on that sports almanac. Although I think that ended in, 2015? That's weird, being that we exist in a future that is beyond the future that he went to the future to. So strange. We are further removed from the 1985 that Marty McFly traveled to that I was alive in than Marty McFly was from 1955 when he traveled back in time, and it seemed so old and weird. I feel like that's changed too, right? Like if you went back to 1985 now, like things would be weird and different, but like you could order a Diet Coke or a Tab or whatever that scene was, right? Or like a lot of like the words still made sense, where like when he went back to 1955 in the joke, like a lot of what he knew and what he experienced didn't make any sense even. I feel like we've lost that. I don't feel like we're as far removed from 1985. We are in a lot of ways, don't get me wrong. I mean, the fact that I'm talking to all of you guys from my my second bedroom office, whatever we're calling this, stuff like that's obviously changed. But I feel like just being able to function in society, like he had a worse shot at it going back to 55 than you would from today going to 85 in that same scenario. They'll remake that one of these days. Give me a Pepsi free. That's what it was. Pepsi free. But yeah, I mean, like we've got the equivalent these days, like Coke Zero, Pepsi free. Like that would make some sense, Jake's 33. Trey's 35. 90 seemed like they're yesterday. It's 20, 30 years ago. Yeah. Yep. I'm about 10 years ahead of you guys. I'm 44. So right between you guys, 9, 10 years ahead. But Yeah, it's just strange, like hearing like, oh yeah, that movie came out 30 years ago, and it's like, holy shit. It's just like, even the early 2000s are starting to creep into that territory. It's like, holy shit, that was 20 years ago. Like, I think of a ton of stuff from like, oh, that came out in like 2000, 2004. That wasn't that long ago. It's like, no, it's coming up on 20 years ago. Holy shit. Anyway, let's jump into this one. Have we started categorizing things like Limp Bizkit and those early 2000s like screamo metal band type of bands as classic rock yet? That was a big surprise for me when like all the 90s music started becoming classic rock. There was a great classic rock station out of New York City for a while. And once they started playing like the music I grew up with, like Pearl Jam, Nirvana, shit like that on there, it was like, whoa, all right, we've entered into a different realm. Josh says 2004, what a great MLB season. What was that? Oh, that was that Sox season. No, that wasn't a great MLB season. I was at that game. I was at the 03 Aaron Boone game, and I was at the 04 Red Sox completing the comeback game. Obviously, the Aaron Boone game was a better one. Ended that night. We were going nuts, obviously. Ended that night as like everybody's walking out of the tunnel after the Aaron Boone game. There's like a loose panel on the wall in Yankee Stadium, like one of those just like metal electrical box covers, and it just made the perfect thing to just be banging on with the let's go Yankees. So I sat there for like 10 minutes as the entire stadium emptied past me, banging on that thing. We thought we were winning the series that year. They left it all on the field against the Sox, I guess. 2004 best ALCS ever. It was a great series. I would never take that away. I mean, that was a great series. Obviously, it didn't work out the way I wanted, but a great series. Anyway, why don't we jump on into this one? Dennis, Cubs fan, says he feels like he hasn't won a tournament since 2004. Let's get you one tonight, Dan. Come on. I know you've had some big pops in your DFS career. We'll get you there again. Pitching change in this first game. The Yankees are not going with Ding Armand. It's Johnny Brito, who you might remember from being pretty shitty at the beginning of the season. Had that one good start, struck out 6 at the first in his debut. Guy at the time, I was here saying like this is not a major league pitcher. I still feel that he's not a major league pitcher. He's had a couple okay outings, but really hasn't been good for us for fantasy. He cost 6,400, 7,600. I wasn't really prepared to discuss him. Like I haven't checked his game log or anything like that, but I know offhand he just doesn't go deep. He doesn't really have great stuff. He's got an okay changeup. When it's effective, it's good. But against this Rays lineup, I see no real reason to trust Johnny Brito in Yankee Stadium. All of the home run marks for the Rays went up. All of the projections went up when I made the pitching change. Ding Armand was a realistic option. He's a good strikeout pitcher, 25% strikeout rate, throws a ton of strikes. He's got his swinging strike rate. Domingo Germán, who's not pitching, is 14 and change, 14.5, I think, might be exactly on the nose, 6 points higher than Johnny Brito. He has a strikeout rate 9 points higher. He's a better pitcher overall. They both allow power. I just have no room for Brito at 7,600 on FanDuel. At 64 on DK, I think it's a really, really weak dart throw, and I'm more interested in the Rays than I was earlier, and I was already interested in this Rays team. A lot of good lefty power in this lineup. A lot of good righty power in this lineup. A lot of good players up and down. They're not all that expensive anymore. These are all like average prices. It's once you start building the full stack with them, it's like, all right, well, I've still spent a fair amount because none of them are like low 2s type options. But with everybody at like average 3s, they're easy enough to build with. You get some positional flex on the FanDuel slate depending on what the final form of the lineup is. And there's just a ton of good options here going up against kind of a nothing pitcher. So this one's going to be kind of both-sided for me in terms of the bats because I will have some Yankees bats against Tyler Glasnow. They're showing okay marks for power around, obviously, Judge and Stanton. Glasnow's given up some premium contact this year. As good as he's been, 34.8% strikeouts, a 3.36 ERA, a 2.61 xFIP. He has given up 15.3% barrels, 48.6% hard hits, 90.6 miles an hour of exit velo, and a 3.16% home run rate. In 61 and 2/3 for a guy with a 5.5 degree average launch angle, which is something, as everybody knows, this is what we always look for in checking power. This amounts to some mistakes, but he's made kind of a lot of them. So when he's not striking guys out, which he's got a major upside for against the Yankees today, and he projects out as my highest overall pitcher, he's kind of allowing a lot of pop. So there is believable power upside for the Yanks, if nothing else. I think you can go to some Yankee stacks. I think you should go to a ton of Tyler Glasnow. I expect he'll be the most popular pitcher on both sites, despite the high price tag. 10.5, 10.6. He's totally worth it. The strikeouts are outrageous. He's got excellent stuff. He's been very good for runs. A 3.36 ERA is good, and a 2.61 xFIP is dynamite. 18% swinging strike rate. Remember what I just said? Domingo Germán was excellent at inducing swinging strikes at 14.5. This is like Spencer Strider territory. Right? 33.5% CSW. He's an excellent strike thrower, excellent strikeout artist. So major upside for Tyler Glasnow. Probably the biggest overall ceiling on the slate, in addition to being the highest projected guy. But I do think there's a world in which the Yankees get to him. Couple guys on base, the right home run in the wrong spot, and you're off and running, and then you get into the bullpen, and anything can happen. The Yanks are very cheap, so it makes them easy to build with around Judge, around Stanton. Glaber and Anthony Rizzo are the two next easiest clicks in that lineup. And then you get a version of the lineup that's got some flawed options in it. DJ LeMahieu at least fits into 3 positions for $2,900 on FanDuel, 2 positions for $32 on DK. He has a 43.8% hard hit rate. That's like the only thing he's got going for him. 89 WRC plus, 8 home runs, 234, 310, 372. Very non-DJ LeMahieu-like season. Jake Bauers instead of Billy McKinney. They're kind of interchangeable parts for like odd duck lefty power. McKinney's been a little bit better than Bauers. Bauers has 8 home runs. McKinney's been hitting for a little bit better average. 116 WRC plus for Bauers, though, a 250 ISO. Decent power upside, 20.4% barrels, 46.9% hard hits. He's probably my next man in behind like top 4 plus Jake Bauers rather than Bader, Volpe, or DJ. Bader and Volpe are good for counting stats, but they're really inconsistent. They're cheap. They're easy to build into the lineups. But on a day with a lot of shortstop options that I want to get to, I'm not sure how much room I have for Volpe. 209, 285, 374, and 83 WRC+. plus. The 13 homers are good. The 19 stolen bases are good, but it's just been inconsistent as hell. Rortvedt, more of a defensively oriented catcher. Not much of a bat. Ignore the 11% barrels, 44.4% hard hits, come in 15 plate appearances. So you can safely ignore this. He's known for his defensive catcher. So really, Yanks are limited. It's limited to the top bats, plus like Jake Bauers, and then odds and ends of these other guys. And it's limited doses of even that, because I think Glasnow has a major ceiling. So it's Glasnow way up here. Probably Rays bats next, Yankees bats after that, and it used to be Ding Germán as a playable part, and now I think it's no interest in Yankees pitching. Judge comes back and they all hit again. Yeah, look, it's a rising tide effect for sure. I mean, Judge is a major impact in that lineup. He creates room for Rizzo and Stanton to do their thing a little bit more. Glaber doesn't have to press as much. He can focus maybe on trying to get on base at better than the 322 clip and kind of set the pace for this lineup. There's a lot of arguments to be made for them getting immediately better with the return of one of the best overall hitters in all of baseball. If there are any Judge doubters for some odd reason, 20 home runs in 222 plate appearances is one of the better paces overall in the league. He missed a ton of time, but that's a great total still. 387 ISO, 93% better than average creating runs, and that's not really a small sample number. That's just kind of Aaron Judge. 30.8% barrels, 63.3% hard hits. I suspect those are both the top 2 marks among anybody with more than 200 plate appearances in all of baseball. I haven't checked, but I would guess. Stanton, obviously, like generational power bat, 14 home runs in 226 for him. Also a good pace, 241 ISO, 15.3% barrels, 50.7% hard hits. These guys do align well with the mistakes that Glasnow's made. It's just, and there's the Yankee Stadium of it all. So I think there's a little bit of danger for Glasnow, but he's easily my favorite part of this. In the Rays lineup, assuming, let's see if we got it. Oh, we did get it. Nice. It is, I think, basically this version. Let's pop it in here, though. Glad we get to talk about it because there's some movable parts up here, and I think they're in a dynamite situation. So they're showing a ton of power. Nobody over the magic number necessarily, but everybody like right around it, and they've shown that kind of power all through the season. All these guys with like mid-teens home runs leading into the 20 home run totals for both Isaac Paredes and Jose Siri in 354 and 254 plate appearances, respectively. Just crazy output for those two guys. Arguable whether it continues or not, but both of those guys have been like those. They're good power hitters if they ever get a chance, potentially good options for the last couple of years, and then they suddenly both got a chance with the same team, and they've delivered on it. So both believable power bats late in the lineup for them. The primary focus is up here with Yandy Diaz and his excellent on-base skills. 401 on base for him, creating runs 58% better than average, 14 homers, 315 batting average, 503 slug, 54.4% hard hits to lead the entire team on a fairly hard-hitting team. Wander Franco is a star at shortstop. He's one of the shortstops that I don't necessarily want to block myself from getting to by using Anthony Volpe too many times. 5,700, 3,600, arguably a little cheap on FanDuel for a guy with 29 steals, 12 homers, a 116 WRC+. He's kind of cooled a little bit, but now he's got Brandon Lau hitting behind him again. 4,331 for him is too cheap, especially in Yankee Stadium, especially against this pitcher. Massive home run upside for Brandon Lau. That number is a little bit low in the home run model here. I consider his home run upside a little bit greater than that. I would have him above the magic number if I was just making these up. Randy Arozarena, 13.5% barrels, 49.2% hard hits, 17 homers, 12 steals. Luke Raley, 15 homers, 11 steals. Josh Lowe, 13 homers, 22 steals. See the theme emerging here? It's just a great lineup for power, for speed, up and down. Big game here. Both teams in kind of a big spot. The Rays have scuffled a little bit through July, had definitely a down July compared to the rest of their season, but there's still a lot of really good dynamic type bats here. They're not that expensive. They're easily flexible on FanDuel. Less flexibility on DK, but totally worth going to, especially now that it's Johnny Brito on the hill. I think we said enough about that one. Let's move on. Let's see what's going on over in the chat. Jake loves Glass Now tonight. Yeah, I'm right there with you, Jake. All over the Glass Now play. Salty Old Man. This is where you went to. I guess Salty Old Man knows me from Stochastic days, probably. Assuming that he's talking to me. He might just be talking to like Chuck Deuces or somebody. Yeah, Salty, this is me. Rotoscouts is my site. Rotoscouts.com. I encourage you to check out the site. Everything's free right now. Big article on breaking down the game by game here. Some thoughts that may or may not work their way into the show, depending on what I remember to say. So that's always worth a read. Also have the home run model up on the site. So it gives you my home run picks for each day, team by team, and then the overall home run pick. Have the power index, which shows you the the collective averages for those home run model marks. And then I have the top stacks tool, which shows you the collective projection averages, the value ratings, and the pitcher rankings on that tool as well. It's a lot of stuff going on over there. There's a free Discord also linked in the chat below the video window on YouTube here. So as you're going down to click that Discord link, make sure you hit the like, hit the subscribe button on YouTube, and you should be in business. You won't miss another thing, Salty Old Man. But welcome. Salty Old Man, are you my friend Evan Saltzman? Just because like that name kind of jibes with not only his last name, but also his personality. He's not that old. Well, he's my age, so I guess he is kind of old. I would be surprised if you were my friend Evan Saltzman. He doesn't play DFS at all, and I haven't mentioned this to him. But if you track me down, hey, what's up, Ev? Haven't seen you in a while. Probably not you. Anyway, Brewers, Nationals, the other premium pitcher of the day, right off the top in the second game on deck. Corbin Burns kind of turned a corner, I think. What does he have? 5 straight starts of 5 straight quality starts, premium starts, averaging an 8.4 strikeout total, if I'm remembering correctly from what I wrote hours and hours ago. I'm getting there on the site here. Let's see. 25.4% strikeout rate, 346, 392 xFIP overall, swinging strike rate of 12.2%, blah, blah, blah. Good on contact. Where is it? Stretch of 5 straight quality starts that have seen him average 8.4%. 8.4 strikeouts total. Not 8.4%, 8.4 strikeouts. So Corbin Burns, maybe not all the way back, but at least has turned the corner for the season and was never really all that bad. Has just been not the dominant force on the mound with the 35% strikeout rate, but he's pitching to a 25.4, good ERA and xFIP. Limiting contact like crazy. 31.7% hard hits, 86.1 miles an hour of exit velo, 5.7% barrels, 2.72% home runs. Those are all very Corbin Burns-like. 5.7% barrels is an exact match for last year. Hard hits have actually lowered by 3 points. Home runs are down slightly. From 2 years ago, the Cy Young season, when he did strike out 35%, he was at 3.1% barrels, 30.5% hard hits, 85.5 miles an hour exit velo, and 1.07% home runs. So maybe some of the additional contact comes with the dip in strikeouts, but he's still very, very good at limiting premium contact. He's still Corbin Burnes, and he's going up against a very low-end Nationals lineup. The Nationals are without Eimer Candelario. I was wondering about that. So one of their best hitters not in the lineup. I'm not sure if a trade actually went through, but Candelario's definitely, they came out over the weekend and said, we've got like 8 teams interested. As soon as one of us makes a good offer, we're going to jump at it. So they basically said, like, Eimer's not going to be on the team come Tuesday night. Not in the lineup today, so that means he's moving somewhere very soon. Lane Thomas is in the lineup. He's loosely on the trade board. According to most press, the Nationals haven't been getting the offers they thought they would for Thomas, so they're just like, yeah, we'll hang on to him for right now. He's really slumped for July. He's still got good numbers on the whole. 16 homers, 12 stolen bases, has been their best player overall this season. But he really came back to earth in July, and apparently most teams are viewing him as like a slightly above replacement level outfielder, a guy they don't want to break the bank for necessarily. I think I've got his July in here. 235, 275, 343 with a 65 WRC plus for the month of July for Lane Thomas. So that's a major dip from a player who overall is at 285, 333, 472 with a 115 WRC plus. Big time dip in quality for him, but he's in the lineup. If you're going to Nationals, the key bats are these top 3 guys. Everybody else is a mix and match. I would include Joey Meneses in that top group just based on the hit tool. Not hitting for a lot of power, but a 93 WRC plus is one of the better marks on this team. But taking Candelario out is a bump to Corbin Burnes and a downgrade to the already bad National stack. Dom Smith not giving you anything this year. Luis Garcia mediocre. Ildemaro Vargas, Corey Dickerson, Alex Call. It's just a bad lineup to roster against one of the best pitchers in baseball. So go with Corbin Burnes shares. And really, I see no real need to go to Nationals bats. It's not even a good contrarian spot for them. Jake Irvin on the other side had that one weird game where he put up the 50-some-odd point total on FanDuel, a good scorer across sites when he was projecting well that day in the model. Does not project all that well here against the Brewers. 21 FanDuel points. I mean, it's a playable enough projection at 55 on DK. I don't think I need to go there on FanDuel, and it just doesn't look good. It doesn't look like it's got much of a ceiling. The Brewers are a mixed bag for quality, but they've got some good bats in that lineup with Christian Yelich, with Carlos Santana. Sal Frelick has been a good bat as a rookie in 32 plate appearances. They expect him to hit, expect him to continue hitting, so he's still a cheap option in that lineup. So I think if I'm deciding in this game, or between these sides anyway, it's definitely deciding between these two sides. I definitely side with the Brewers bats over Jake Irvin, and I think I will go to them at least for some shares. They're okay values. Just looking at some of these prices for the hitters that I do want to go to, though, all these prices are good, low average type prices. But I think I would prefer to go to the Rays for really, really similar pricing across those same positions. Like shortstop, Willy Adames and Wander Franco, there's no comparison. I'd rather have Wander Franco. He's more expensive by a few $100, but he's still in the threes. Christian Yelich versus Randy Arozarena is a fairly close comparison, but just based on the quality of the team, the quality of the ballpark, et cetera, I think I'd rather go to Arozarena in the Rays stack. Granted, you'll probably have a little bit lower ownership on Christian Yelich. So the Brewers are in play. They're definitely in play for value, but they're probably a lower end option than some of the other teams we'll talk about, the Rays included. Maybe the Yankees included. They'll probably draw about even with the Yankees, given the Yankees' general lack of quality, but it's not like the Brewers have an option like Aaron Judge. Christian Yelich falls well short of that. Christian Yelich falls short of the Stanton power upside, but around that upside maybe for like fantasy scoring overall. Very good player off the top of the lineup. I think everybody knows I really like Christian Yelich a lot. 30% better than average creating runs, 16 homers, 22 steals, 53.5% hard hits. For $3,500 for $5,300 on DK, he's a very good buy to start a Brewer stack. He should be in most Brewer stacks. William Contreras, the better of the two brothers probably right now, or at least this season, including the triple slash, 276, 350, 450, 174 ISO, 11 homers. They can both put bat on ball well, him and his brother on the cards. 4,500, 3,000. Where you're playing catchers, I mentioned this yesterday, it always does pay to look for catchers that hit high up in the batting order. especially ones who are good at putting bat on ball, have additional attributes in addition to hitting up there, which is usually why they're hitting up there. But you pick up a plate appearance for a value position on the DK slate. So less so on FanDuel, where they kind of are just a cheaper first baseman in most cases. But on DK, when you can get a guy like Contreras or a guy like Adley Rutschman from the Orioles, who's hitting leadoff these days, when you get that extra plate appearance, it just as an added value to an already capable bat at a key position that you have to play. So I always like to look at guys like this, even if he is not the hitter that Adley Rutschman is. He's a good enough hitter, and he gets that little nudge over a guy. Or Kiebert falls into this category, hitting third as well, by the way. But over a guy who would typically hit like 7th, 8th, somewhere around there as a lower end catcher. There's always a good reason to go to catchers who hit high in the lineup on DK slates. Frelick, I mentioned, fairly cheap, 3,800, 3,000, capable rookie bat that they expect to continue to succeed. More of a hit tool focused guy, but a little bit of pop in the bat as well. He's got a home run in his 32 plate appearances. His creative runs 48% better than average in the meaningless sample. I think you can go to Sal Frelick hitting cleanup. Adames is a flawed hitter, but tons and tons of power at shortstop. Monasterio, Victor Caratini, we talk about his sneaky pop all the time. 5 home runs in 152, but a 49.5% hard hit rate. Sneaky catcher bat down there. 2-rank Joey Wiemer, playable parts, mix and match guys. I prefer Wiemer to 2-rank. Neither one is all that good. So it's Corbin Burns. Big yes. A lot of Corbin Burns. Some Brewer stacks, mix and match type mid-level play. Let's check out where they rank on the board. Ranked a little higher than that on the board. 3rd ranked for value on both sides, so I was on the value. 5th ranked by projection, 6th by home run upside. So it's maybe even a little bit more potential than I was giving him here against Jake Irvin. It's a nothing pitcher that they're facing, so there's clear upside for the Brewers. That also might lead to more popularity depending on how they rank out across other sites. So I'm not sure how recommended they'll be. I'm sure they'll pick up popularity on the value, but it's a good spot. That's a little bit better than the mid-board spot that I was calling it based on how it projects out. Always good to check the tools. Let's move on from this one. So again, one more time to reiterate, Corbin Burns with a bullet. Brewer stacks maybe a little bit better than I was describing him. Definitely a good value play. Nationals only in the most contrarian sense, only with like the top few hitters. It could work out, but you're playing a really, really thin game there against Corbin Burns with those Nats bats. Adley Rutschman, like I was just talking about, leadoff spot again. Love that spot for him. 15.5% strikeouts, 14% walks. So he puts the ball in play. When he's not putting the ball in play, he's drawing a walk and getting on first base. A 374 on base percentage, 14 home runs, creating runs 24% better than average as the team leader. Hits from both sides of the plate. Like, what more could you add to the pile of how good Adley Rutschman is? He's a fantastic catcher, great defensively, great manager of the pitching staff. None of this matters for DFS purposes, but I rave about this player. He is very, very good. That was a great draft pick by them in a collection of great draft picks and prospects that they picked up while being completely god-awful for a number of years. But it paid off. Let me take a swig. Brought to you by, who remembers a recent number 45 on the Yankees? Which would be a funny cup for me to have. Give you guys a couple seconds to respond. Recent number 45 on the Yankees. Salty Old Man says, sorry, I'm not him. I know you're from Awesome-O. Yes, I still call it that. I still call it that too, buddy. Hey, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Yeah, back at it. I've been at it since opening day of the season, but I'm glad you found us. I did, apologies that I've been kind of difficult to find, I guess. It was kind of a soft launch. I haven't really promoted the hell out of it. See how I do still call it Awesome-O, by the way? That's just where ownership goes. This is actually RG's ownership, and it's actually from yesterday's slate. But my ownership tab is still called Awesome-O from back in the day. Salty Old Man 7 minutes behind. he'll hear this in a minute. Larry says had his 2 home run game last week or the other day. Who are we talking about, Larry? Naylor? I like Josh Naylor on any given slate, really. Naylor's a good player. Anyway, the number 45, recent Yankee, that represents the Cup. Cole wears the 40. Well, this was a Luke Voigt 45. I am getting that right? Now you threw me. Oh, maybe I had it wrong. Was he 59 on the Yanks? So maybe this is a Garrett Cole Cup, and I can like it a lot. I thought this was a Luke Voigt Cup. War number 45 with pride, but needs to. Okay, so that's what it was. He was 45 when I got this cup when he was with the Yanks, and then when they brought Cole in, he changed from 45 to 59. That's what it was. This is a 2018 cup. That's right. Yeah, Garrett Cole would be a lot better. I'm going to pretend like this is a Garrett Cole cup. Yeah, it's an old cup, Chuck. I do appreciate the correction on. I completely forgot that Cole was 45 when I brought that up. I thought it would be a fun game, but I completely forgot Garrett Cole's been wearing that number proudly for the last couple of years. Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna pretend I went old school with Chili Davis. That would be cool. I'd be happy to have a Chili Davis Yankees Cup. All right, let's dive back into this one here. Chris Bassitt, Kyle Gibson, playable parts, like spare part-ish. Two guys that have had decent careers and have had upside games for DFS purposes all along, but obviously plenty of warts on both pitchers. Gibson pitching to a 19.1% strikeout rate, 4.68 ERA, 4.30 xFIP, 7.4% walks. Kind of Kyle Gibson-ish numbers. Not great, but okay. Last year, 20.1%, 5.05 ERA, 3.94 xFIP. Year before, 20.6%, 3.71, 4.14. He's Kyle Gibson. He's going up against the Blue Jays here. It's not a great spot. I prefer the Blue Jays bat side of the equation, but I think for 6,400, 7,900, Kyle Gibson's like bottom of the board mix-in kind of a guy. You could see an okay start. It's not likely. It's not a strong play. If I'm only building 20 lineups, I don't think I use him. It's very, very thin. Doesn't project overly well. But there is a little bit of thin potential there at the value numbers. Bassitt on the other side, 7,500. It's basically that exact same story at a cheaper price, a more expensive price on DK, and a much more expensive price on the FanDuel slate. I don't know how much he's on the board at 9,100 on FanDuel. He's got upside. He's got upside to pitch clean innings. That used to be his specialty, working 7 innings, pitching fairly clean games, handful of strikeouts. This year he's been a little bit more bumpy, a little bit more difficult to trust. Overall, he's sitting outside of a 12 strikeout game against the Giants on June 29th, he's averaged just 4.4 strikeouts in 7 of his last 8 games. He has 4 quality starts in that stretch. The reason that I made it 8 games, he's on a run of 8 straight starts in which he's allowed more than 3 runs only once, which was a 4-run start. So in his last 8 starts, he's allowed at most 4 runs, and that only happened once. But he's only got 4 quality starts because he was short started a couple times in there. So the depth hasn't been quite as reliable. That was the point that I was trying to make in the article. And the strikeouts have been down. The strikeout upside's been down a little bit. So I don't love the opportunity for Bassitt against against an Orioles lineup that I do want to utilize. I think there's a little bit of sneaky upside for the Orioles, a little bit of upside for the Blue Jays on the other side. So I actually prefer the bats, but I do think you can get away with the value-priced pitchers with the pitchers where they're value-priced. So Gibson either way. Very weak option, the weaker of the 2 options. And then Bassitt on DK. Bassitt, again, at 91 on FanDuel. He projects okay enough to play it in small doses. It's just really thin. So I think it kind of just goes by the wayside on price for me. Orioles lineup, Adley off the top. I just raved about him a minute ago, but let's talk about their another one of their premium rookies, Gunnar Henderson. 4,900, 3,400, 241, 332, 463, a 222 ISO, creating runs 19% better than average, 16 home runs, walking 11.6% of the time, barreling 11.2% of his batted ball events, 53.8% hard hit rate. He's been outrageously good in 370 plate appearances. As I put in the article, he's been so good that it makes you forget that he didn't break camp as one of their top prospects. He's just been really, really good in 370 plate appearances. Anthony Santander, their most consistent power hitter, 214 ISO, 18 home runs to lead the team. Ryan Mountcastle behind O'Hearn, hitting 5th, is their best actual power hitter, the guy with the most actual power. 13 home runs on the season in 301 plate appearances, a 201 ISO from the right side. O'Hearn, as I keep referring to, have not raised his prices, 3,100, 2,900, despite a great season. He was a low 2s hitter in his career with Kansas City. He's hitting 304, 345, 525, a 221 ISO, 9 homers in 197 plate appearances. The next 200 will probably be lower end, But I said that about 50 plate appearances ago, and he's kept it up over those 50. So who the hell knows at this point? 11.4% barrels, 55% hard hits. They've maybe unlocked something with O'Hearn, and he's been great for them. Very, very cheap at first base. You do have to decide between him and Mountcastle as one of those key decision points on DK, which sucks. You get them both on FanDuel easily enough, and O'Hearn has outfield eligibility on FanDuel for only 29 to add to his upside. Larry says, Terry moving the mouse was freaking me out on the TV. I thought there was a fly in my office. I had not made the hit for the cycle pick that you've now forced on me every day, Pogegen Stoner. But I'm happy to continue throwing those out. It's a fun one to try and nail. I'll keep it in my pocket. I'll see if I can think of one. Going down the list, so like 1 through 5, Orioles are really strong, and then you get the oddball season from Adam Frazier. He's got 13 homers this year. He was totaled like half that over the last 2 seasons put together in like 1,200 plate appearances. But you take it while you got it. Second base on DK, second base and outfield on FanDuel, very cheap. If again, another guy, if they don't raise his price to go along with the weird output, I don't care that it's weird output. I can continue rostering it in a decent spot in this lineup. Then you get Austin Hayes, who's been good this season. Not great, but good. 287, 328, 449. 9 homers mostly came early in the season. But he's still producing runs, 13% better than the average for run creation. Colton Cowser at 2,600, 2,200. Let the field sleep on him. If he goes under-owned, I want a lot of Colton Cowser. I know he's been bad over 59 plate appearances in the show, but he is a top, he was, I think, the number 2 ranked prospect in all of baseball when they called him up. He is a premium 5-tool player. He's going to hit for average. He's going to hit for power. He's going to steal bases. I like Colton Cowser quite a bit. At 2,622, he's easy to get to for me at the bottom of the lineup. Jorge Mateo has been a mess since starting out. He was like the best player not named Brent Rooker for all of April. And then he's been a complete mess since. 211, 259, 341, only 271 plate appearances, 23 stolen bases. You get a little speed out of him if he manages to make his way to first base. That's about it. No Springer in the lineup for the Blue Jays. Yep, that appears to be true. Whit Merrifield, I like hitting leadoff, though. We talked about that a little bit in the article as well. Let me grab the stats so I can mention it. But, yeah, I definitely want to attack some Kyle Gibson with the Blue Jays bats. In 24 plate appearances, so it's an extremely small sample, Whit Merrifield's created runs 66% better than average from the leadoff role. That's where he is in this lineup. I really like it. He's got a good hit tool. He's got a 353 overall on base percentage. He's got good speed in that spot in the lineup. Not that we're looking at the leadoff spot as the traditional, we just need a fast guy in that spot. But a guy who gets on at 353 when he's also got speed, that just supports the idea of playing him there. Helps with the run creation for Bo Bichette, Brandon Belt, Vladdy Guerrero, Matt Chapman. You get Varsho sliding up, so Chapman hitting 5th, Varsho sliding up to the 6th spot in the lineup, and then we get the version of the lineup with Kevin Biggio at the bottom, Alejandro Kirk, Kevin Kiermaier. Kind of a meh bottom third. Any one of these guys, though, can add value. Any one of those 3 guys can hit a home run. 6 for Kirk on the season at 264, 7 for Biggio and only 171, but he's got a 216, 298, 386 triple slash as a part-timer. An aggressive 29.2% strikeout rate on the season. 12.6% barrels is good for him, though. Kiermaier is like a defensive player who mixes in with an okay hit tool, a little bit of pop, a little bit of speed from time to time. But from 1 through 6, even without Springer in there, which is a downgrade to this lineup for sure, it's still a pretty playable, pretty good-looking stack. There's a lot of discounts here. Varsho's struggled overall for the season, 12 home runs, 12 stolen bases, but he's got a 75 WRC plus, really bad triple slash, but he's a good player. He's got a guy with pop in his bat, with a little bit of speed. He's only 3,500, 2,700, easy to get to in the outfield. Chapman, 14 home runs on the season, started out on fire. A lot of the statistical output kind of cooled, but he's still got a 205 ISO, and he still leads the team with an 18.4% barrel rate, 59.4% hard hits in 434 plate appearances. So the premium contact has been sustained. He's a great option at third base for 4,800, 3,300. Vladdy is a superstar. Brandon Belt, it sucks that you have to decide between those two on DK, but that is another key decision point. Belt has been producing runs like crazy. They have the same WRC plus. Belt's done it in half the plate appearances. He's got 8 home runs to Vladdy's 17. You get Vladdy in kind of a down year statistically, but he does have the premium contact profile that is better than last year's premium contact profile. You still expect an outrageous final 2 months of the season from Vlad Guerrero. And it's not like he's been bad. He just hasn't been Vladdy. Bo Bichette is a star, 5,400, 3,300. Another one of those guys that I would just rather have Bo Bichette shares than Anthony Volpe shares at shortstop. That also applies to like a Jorge Mateo, a Willy Adames. Basically, most of the other shortstops on this slate, if you put it in a vacuum, I'd rather have Bo Bichette. We'll see what I can afford. 17 home runs, he only cost 3,300 on the FanDuel slate. Sounds pretty affordable to me. 54 on DK, that's a low price for him as well. 133 WRC plus to lead the team. So this one goes, I'm going to say Blue Jays bats, Orioles bats, Chris Bassett, Kyle Gibson. You can throw darts at both pitchers, but they're darts. They're low end. Angels and the Braves coming up next. Let's see if we got the Angels lineup. We do. Luis Rengifo made it into the leadoff spot as they were forecasting. Let's see what else we got here. Angels lineup's a little bit different these days with... Okay, they're in there. Just wanted to make sure they actually made it to the ballpark. So they picked up, if you didn't hear, CJ Cron and Randall Grichuk from the Rockies in a trade. Good acquisitions for them. They lost Taylor Ward to a fastball in the face from Alek Manoah. He's going to be out the rest of the season, so they needed to replace his bat. They went and got two pretty effective players. So Randall Grichuk, good hit tool this year, 308, 365, 496. Creating runs 17% better than average in 263 plate appearances. And he's got 8 home runs on the board this season. So he's having a good season in like half a season. He missed most of the start of the season with an injury. CJ Cron also missed most of the start of the season with an injury. He's got 11 home runs, a 216 ISO, 260, 304, 476. CJ Cron's here for his power. 15.6% barrels, 43.8% hard hits. So I really like the two acquisitions for them. Shakes up the lineup a little bit. Grichuk hitting 7th behind Hunter Renfroe and Mike Moustakas is interesting. I was actually thinking it would be more like what they had in the projected lineup, but this works as well. So 1 through 7, I'll even throw Moose into that bucket. Actually, yeah, with Neto and Wallach in there, it's a pretty good top-to-bottom lineup. They're going up against Charlie Morton, though. Morton's been effective this season, 24.3% strikeout rate, 3.57 ERA, a 4.08 xFIP. Those are all pretty good numbers. Pretty good at limiting power, only a 2.02% home run rate, 7.9% barrels, 37.2% hard hits. So Morton's not a disaster, but he's walked way too many this season. 10.3% walks is well up for him. A 1.42 whip is up. Not striking out quite as many as in years past. So I think there's a good opportunity for the Angels to maybe get to Charlie Morton here. He projects pretty well. 29.4 is one of the better FanDuel projections on the board. I just don't know. Let me see where he's... I suspect, and it's confirmed by checking across town, I won't give away their number, Charlie Morton's going to be really popular at the FanDuel price at 94. So I suspect at 93 on DraftKings, where you need two of these guys, it's probably going to be pretty popular over there too. I think we can utilize some Angels to maybe attack some of that Charlie Morton. I don't want to go over the top with it because Charlie's good enough. And I definitely want to have some Charlie in my pocket, but I'll be under the field on Charlie Morton shares if he's projecting or if he's coming out, as we approach lock toward where he's projected now. I think it's a safe undercut. I think it's one that you can roster, but undercut, kind of like what we were saying for what's his face yesterday. The lefty from Miami, what was it? Luzardo. Kind of like what we were saying for him. I think you can maybe undercut the Charlie Morton shares, and this is a situation where I think it would pay to, not necessarily in those exact lineups, but in a good handful of lineups, maybe target some Charlie Morton with these very good Angels bats. So it's a both-sided situation for me. Rengifo is a really interesting option in the leadoff spot. He's had sneaky power. He had 17 home runs last year, 9 home runs in only 304 plate appearances this year with a 157 ISO. Not an ideal leadoff hitter. 190 plate appearances 2 years ago. He got on base at a 246 clip, but he hit 6 home runs. Last year, hit the 17 home runs in 511 plate appearances, but had a 294 on-base percentage. Just a weird choice in the leadoff spot. He's cleaned that up to a 316 this year for on base. Not the ideal leadoff guy. Mickey Moniak would make more sense up there with his 354 and 206 plate appearances. It's a smaller sample, but that would maybe make a little bit more sense. I think Grichuk would actually make a ton of sense for them in the leadoff role, given that he's got a 365 on base this year, if they don't want to use like Moniak up there. Renifo's weirdly cast in that spot, but I want to see him do it. He's a very cheap correlated scoring option at 3,300 with second base, third base eligibility, second base, shortstop, outfield eligibility on FanDuel for 2,700. He correlates really, really well with Shohei Ohtani. All his power. I don't need to sell him to anybody, but he does have first base eligibility on DK. That is offset by the presence of CJ Cron now, so it's a little less valuable that he's got it, but he's got it for 6,500, 46 on FanDuel. It's easy to get to Ohtani when all these other guys are pretty cheap too. Just averages down his price, you stack them together, and it's a nothing cost. Moniak has been outrageous this season, 11 home runs in 206 plate appearances to go with that good on base, to go with a 55% better than average run creation mark. Former first overall pick, finally delivering 14.3% barrels. Good home run total, good triple slash. We'll see what the next 2 months look like, but Moniak's been a good contributor from them, and it's been a managed season for him. They're putting him out there in a lot of good lefty-righty spots. They're putting him out there and not exposing him to good lefties, but he's been producing over the long term here in 206 plate appearances. So I'm kind of a believer at this point. Hunter Renfroe, 17 home runs on the season, a little behind the pace from what he's done over the past couple seasons, but that gives him 77 home runs since the start of 2021. He's a dominant power hitter, and he went through a big dip, but I think he's probably on the way out of it. So 3,900, 2,800, I'm happy to just continue going there for cheap prices. Major power upside for Hunter Renfroe. Mike Moustakas has been unexpectedly kind of decent, or at least Mike Moustakas-ish, over 236 plate appearances. First base, third base for 31. First base, third base for 27 across town. 267, 335, 438. Creating runs 1% ahead of the curve. 9 home runs, 171 ISO, 41.1% hard hit rate. It's much better than he was the last 2 years. And then I talked about Grichuk. I mentioned Neto and Wallach at the bottom of the lineup. Neto, first promoted player from last year's draft class, has made 238 plate appearances in the show. Really highly regarded hit tool. He's delivered a 251, 325 in the first 2 spots of his triple slash. 427 slugging. He's actually hit for a little bit of unexpected power. 9.8% barrels, 40.9% hard hits. Over time, he'll probably normalize to more like a maybe gets to 12, 15 home runs, but a good average, good on base percentage type hitter. Right now, I think he's a cheap option for whatever, 3,200, 2,900, just an effective enough hitter from the bottom of the lineup where nobody will own him. Shortstop, do I want him more than I want the Wander Francos and the whoever that was of the world? No, but I probably want him in equal doses or maybe a little bit more than I want Anthony Volpe. I just want to continue trashing Volpe. I'm hoping to have that reverse jinx effect on him. Chad Wallach, decent little power bat at catcher. 126 plate appearances, 6 home runs on the board, 11.4% barrels on the right side of the plate. 2,300, 2,200. Just, know what you're buying. He's a crappy hitter, but he's got a little bit of pop when he connects. Griff Canning. I don't think we want to go here. He's had a few good games. He had a dominant 12 strikeout start against the Yankees. He had a good 8 strikeout performance against the Tigers in his last start. 25.5% strikeout rate overall. 4.46 ERA, a 3.81 xFIP. For Griff Canning, over 16 starts, he's been producing pretty decent numbers, except for in this concerning area. That is the premium contact. As regular viewers probably know, that's where the home runs are, that's where the barrels are, that's where the hard hits and the exit velo is. 8.9% barrels, 43% hard hits, 91.5 miles an hour of exit velocity on average, and a 4.48% home run rate. And not to bury the lead, he's playing against the Atlanta Braves today. The Braves were really, really close, neck and neck on projections on the average with the San Diego Padres, who have a higher implied run total and are playing in Coors Field against a crappy pitcher. The Braves are really good if you haven't noticed. All these guys have above average marks, above the magic number for home run power. There's no reason not to believe that the Braves are going to hit another 2 or 3 home runs today, probably score a whole bunch of runs. The average hitter in the Braves lineup has 19 home runs this year. That's just stupid. Travis d'Arnaud in the lineup instead of Sean Murphy. We do talk about d'Arnaud anytime he's in the lineup because he is the best backup catcher in baseball when it comes to hitting for power. 9 home runs in 163 plate appearances this year, 11.7% barrels, 44.1% hard hits. He's not Sean Murphy, but he's priced at a discount to Sean Murphy, 4,600, 3,200. I will use Travis d'Arnaud on FanDuel, where you don't have to use catchers. He is a highly playable part of this Braves lineup. So it's a downgrade from Murphy to d'Arnaud, but it's a very playable downgrade. He's probably still like the best. Adley's on the slate. Who else is on the slate? Easy way to do this. So Sean Murphy's not playing. d'Arnaud's got the best home run mark among catchers who are playing today. Gary Sanchez, William Contreras, Cal Raleigh, John Gomes. Adley's down here for home run upside today, but he's obviously an excellent player for 3,100 on FanDuel, 5,000 on DK. I would rank it probably Adley, just given his overall skills with the bat. But if you're looking for home run power, it's d'Arnaud. But they're 1-2 on my catcher board today. And it's not really that close. So for people who like to think positionally, people who play like cash games, stuff like that, those are the two catchers that I would focus on. Aaron Judge, top of the board, 18.58, ahead of all these ridiculous Braves in their great situation, because he's just that goddamn good. Love Aaron Judge. So the Braves, it's outside of the d'Arnaud Murphy switch, it's the everyday version of the lineup. I think everybody knows that you can play this lineup 1 through 9 in any combination with one another, in any combination with anything that can help you afford them. They're very expensive across the top 4 hitters: Ronald Acuna, Ozzie Albies, Austin Riley, Matt Olson. 3 of those guys, actually all 4 of those guys, all 4 of those guys are arguably the best player in the league at their position. Riley is not. Albies might be. Olson arguably might be, but probably is not, behind like Freeman and very few other options. Albies is competitive, even with like Mookie Betts when Mookie's a second baseman, in terms of power, in terms of run creation. Ronald Acuna is possibly the best player in baseball when we take Shohei Ohtani's pitching away. 24 home runs, 51 stolen bases, 66% better than average creating runs, 335, 416, 578. All those guys are outrageous options on any given slate in any combination. It's difficult to put them all together, but you mix and match them with the d'Arnauds, the Ozunas, the Rosarios, and Arcias and Harrises of the world. It's a great 1 through 9 lineup. Just let the public sit here and say, I don't want to keep going to the Braves, blah, blah, blah. Just keep going to the Braves. They rank this well. I honestly, like putting out content every day, I would welcome shakeup. I would welcome days where they're not the most outrageous team in baseball. They're not the team I have to rave about and tell everybody to continue playing, but continue playing them. They are that good. This is that good a spot. Could Griff Canning succeed against them? Sure. Anything could happen. He could come out. He's got a very good strikeout rate. He could come out, find a handful of strikeouts, but it's not like they're all that easy to strike out. Even with all that power in tow, this lineup has a 20.8% strikeout rate this year. Part of that's cut down because Ronald Acuna is at 11.8%, but it's not like I'm going to say, all right, we'll take out Acuna. It's Ronald Acuna. He's responsible for a lot of their runs, a lot of their power. Albies, 15.8%. Another log to throw on the fire of him potentially being the best second baseman in baseball. Riley, 23.1, Olson, 26.7, but walks 13.3% of the time. Down the bottom of the lineup, Arcia and Harris, both at 19%. It's not an easy lineup, so I don't like the opportunity for Griff Canning. 7,200, 8,800, the field can have him. So a little bit of Charlie Morton, ranking it. Braves way up here. Then the Angels bats for me, and then Charlie Morton, I think. And no real interest in Griff Canning. If Morton's going to draw all that ownership, I want to get invested in some Angels. Let's see. We have the Cubbies lineup is in. I feel like I'm taking my time today. 5:10. All right, we're doing okay. I wouldn't mind getting out of here in a decent time. I like these days where we can talk about a lot and still get out at an okay time. Today's not fully one of those, but I think we can pick up a little ground not having to talk about pitching in Coors Field and so on. We will talk about it, don't worry. The Reds, the Cubbies. I really like the spot with both of these pitchers, but at the same time, I'm going to have shares of both bats on this one. I think it's a really interesting four corners game. I think any one of these sides could go off in terms of the offense, and I think any one of these sides in terms of the pitching could deliver. Marcus Stroman is probably my favorite part of this spot just because he's so cheap. 8,400 to 8,900 projects out a little bit better than Andrew Abbott for 10,000, 10,800 on the other side. And he's going up against the Reds lineup that is as good as they've been and as fun as they are to play and as productive as they've been. 24.8% strikeout rate for that lineup. That can't be ignored. Stroman's got a 21% strikeout rate with the upside and the talent to find a few more in the right spots, and this could be that right spot. He's very, very good at limiting home runs as well, which is concerning for the Reds. 1.54% home run rate for Stroman on 4.4% barrels, 2.7 degrees average launch angle. Last year, 7 degrees average launch angle, 6.6% barrels, 2.81% home runs. Year before, 2.33% home runs on 6.3 degrees, 6.5% barrels. So arguably, he's been doing a better version of what he's always been trying to do on the mound when he was already pretty good at limiting home runs. Already a pretty good pitcher. 3.50 ERA and a 3.49 xFIP last year, 20.9% strikeouts. Very much the same in terms of the runs, in terms of the strikeouts year over year. And going back to 2021, same numbers, 3.02, 3.57, 21.6. Marcus Stroman's a really good pitcher. I will have the Reds on the other side, but I just like the pitcher for this price. I think that's the third highest rank on the board, third highest projection on the board for that cheap. And I think Abbott was the next guy down, fourth overall. So I think you can go to Abbott. We've talked about his bumps. He's now in that spot where like he projects kind of well, but not outrageously well. But he only projected outrageously well for that one game. It was his worst game of the season because that's when the model was caught up and informed on everything he had done. It fell apart in that start, and then he's come back and he's been perfectly fine and pitching again, kind of really, really well, but still tellingly like over his head. So it's just difficult to know what to make of Abbott here. 27.8% strikeouts. Very, very good. 11.6% swinging strikes, 27.9% CSW. The swinging is very good. CSW is actually a little bit low for a guy with that kind of swinging strike rate. The walks are at 8%, so that's where some of the wildness, some of the walks, some of the pitching out of the zone, but only a 0.96 whip. And the spectacular part, obviously, is the 1.90 ERA in 10 starts, 61 and 2/3 innings. But he's got a 4.30 xFIP. That's a massive difference between the expected number that focuses on the things that are actually in his control and the earned runs number. He's allowed a ton of premium contact, 8.6% barrels, 42.1% hard hits, 90.5 miles an hour of exit velo on a 23.3 degree angle. This is all home run trajectory, home run contact, 3.38% home runs. He's given up a few. He hasn't probably given up as many as he should have. So I will have Abbott, but probably less than the field. Probably, let's see how old he is. Maybe not. He's not going to be all that popular according to one source. So if he's owned in the single digits, I'll probably be around the field. Maybe I even give it a little kick to 10, 12%. But it's not going to be like my highest exposed play of the day, even though he projects fairly well. I think the Cubbies' power is in play on the other side. I think their run creation ability, their ability to get on base, their ability to draw walks, I think all of this is in play for the Cubs. Got a lot of decent on-base percentages to very good on-base percentages for some of their key bats. You do have Cody Bellinger in the lineup hitting cleanup, so it seems like he's probably not on that trade market. They've pulled themselves together just enough that they're probably going to keep Cody unless they get a Godfather offer for him. He's having a great year. I talked about it in the article. At the beginning of the season, I wrote a little bit. I forget what day, so I can't point to it, but it could be found on the site somewhere. But I wrote about how he needed to focus on lowering his strikeout rate from like 27.3%. He, at the time, was in the low 20s, and he's improved it now to 15.9%. That is just dynamite. That is exactly what he needed to do to turn himself back into the MVP caliber player, maybe not MVP caliber, but 314, 366, 536 with a 221 ISO, 40% better than average creating runs, 15 homers, 12 steals in 314 plate appearances. Add another 120 plate appearances to that and put him at what he would be for the season had he not had that injury absence. He'd be over 20 home runs, probably approaching 20 steals. This would be good. I mean, presumably, if he obviously is, it's assuming a continued pace here, but he's put everything together very, very nicely this season. So I really like the Bellinger spot. I think ahead of him in the lineup there, Ian Happ is a great correlation option, given a 377 on base percentage. He's always been really good at getting on base. He's hit for more power in the past, only 10 homers this year, 8.1% barrels, 37.7% hard hits, but he's just a very cheap correlated scoring play with Cody Bellinger. Seiya Suzuki, kind of a down year, 252, 334, 388. Was expecting a little bit more for him, but I think he's a better player than this, and he only costs 3,100, 2,800. Again, a correlated scoring option with these guys. Nico, arguably overpriced at 4,800, 3,300, second in shortstop eligibility, but 96 WRC plus. He's really mostly a speed-focused player. He's fine to use, and the positions are good, and the price is playable on FanDuel. A little bit high on DK, but I don't think the popularity will be outrageous here against Abbott, so I think he's playable up the top. I kind of prefer these two guys to these two guys, though. I really like Dansby Swanson with his price down at shortstop. Tons and tons of premium contact still. Multiple years over 20 home runs in his career track record. 12 on the season and 401 plate appearances. Still creating runs 11% better than average. So I like the spot for a cheap Dansby Swanson. And then John Gomes, 3,200 on DK. That's a very playable catcher. 278, 320, 449, a 105 WRC plus in 256 plate appearances. 9 home runs on the board. Chris Morel, Trey Mancini, Nick Madrigal. Morel and Mancini are good mix-ins for power. Morel's obviously got 16 home runs and only 253 tries. 282, 345, 542. 260 ISO, 137 WRC plus. He hits down lineup because he strikes out 31.6% of the time. He's probably not the superstar that he looks like in the limited sample, but he's been very, very good this year. 14.7% barrels, 48.7% hard hits. When he connects, the ball goes. 4,100 is a very high price for him on the FanDuel slate, though. Triple position eligibility is great, but that is a very high price for Chris Morel on FanDuel. Mancini's fine. Madrigal's slap-hitting defender. In the Reds lineup, going up against Stroman, so a little bit limited compared to where they normally would be for power. But I still want to get here. I think there's enough pop that they could get to Stroman, but I also think that they could just hit the ball hard while keeping it in the yard and use their speed, use their on-base skills, and so on and so forth to create runs kind of in a similar approach that the Cubs would have. So Ellie off the top, obviously very, very good for 5,900, 3,500, up to a 104 WRC plus, 17 steals, 7 home runs. Just blasts the ball when he makes contact with it, 46.8% hard hits, up to a 7.3% barrel rate. Still strikes out 32.2% of the time, 322 on base. He's the fastest player in baseball, so I get why they want to have him in the leadoff role, and I'm fine with it. But maybe more of a 5-hitter than a leadoff hitter. Especially when you've got guys who get on at a 352 clip like TJ Friedl right behind him, or like Jake Fraley could fill that role with a 351. Spencer Steer might be ideal for that role with a 356. There's a lot of guys who get on base a little bit better than Ellie does, but he's a superstar. I mean, there's no arguing with the talent. Superstar caliber talent on track to be a superstar. Let's put it that way. I don't want to call him that just yet. Friedl, very cheap, 4,100, 3,200. Dynamite option, 7 home runs, 16 stolen bases, a 107 WRC plus. Not somebody that anybody expected to be a star, but he's not priced like it. Still cheap for the output. Matt McClain is kind of a star, 305, 375, 530, 226 ISO, 38% better than average creating runs, 11 homers, 8 steals, 42.4% hard hits, 10.9% barrels. Fills second and shortstop on both sites. Creates a dynamic roster situation with Ellie at shortstop and third. You can flex those guys around a lot. You also get Spencer Steer, third base and outfield on DK, outfield and first base on FanDuel. He's only 4,500, 3,500. He's got 15 homers, 9 steals this season, 15% better than average creating runs. Fraley in the middle, 4,400, 3,300 in the outfield, 15 homers, 18 steals, getting on base at a 351 clip, 211 ISO, 18% better than average creating runs. Joey Votto is a masher at the bottom of the lineup. If anybody knows how to hit home run off Marcus Stroman, it's probably Joey Votto. That said, 194, 310 is not pretty at the front of the triple slash, but a 481 slug at 287 ISO, 9 homers and 126 plate appearances, 16.4% barrels, 45.2% hard hits. Sucks that you got to decide between him and Encarnacion Strand on the DK slate at first base. It's another key decision point. It's another spot where I think you can go to either side and just make sure that you're using your $1,200 pretty well. It's a big savings on the DK slate. On FanDuel, you get Encarnacion Strand at third base for $2,900, only $100 less expensive than Joey Votto, which is a little silly, but he's a dynamite player. He's only hit 1 home run. He's at 216, 275, 297, and created runs 49% worse than average over his 40 plate appearances. I promise Christian Encarnacion Strand is going to get better. Possibly as soon as tonight. Will Benson. Great season so far from the bottom of the lineup. 34% better than average in 183 plate appearances, creating runs from the bottom of the lineup basically every day. Sneaky option down there. Luke Miley, if you need a catcher, he's fine to go to. 4 home runs in 116 plate appearances. Not ideal, but he only cost $2,300 on the DK slate. Does have a 12.8% barrel rate, so cheap enough despite the bad spot in the lineup. So Stroman, Abbott, Cubs bats, Reds bats. Tightly packed four corners game that I really would have no argument if people said that it's in any other order. I really think that you could put that in any order and they all stack up fairly well. So it's an interesting game there. Kind of a both-sided all four corners game. Not an all four corners game in this one. Let's see if we got the Guardians lineup. We do. Excellent. Lineups are dropping just as we need them. So let's talk about JP France and let's talk about Noah Syndergaard. The return in the Ahmed Rosario trade, making his first start since early June. I wouldn't say early June, might have been mid-June, but who cares? First start in a while. 2 starts of 5 innings apiece in the minors over the last 2 weeks or so, but has just not been good. 7.16 ERA, 4.69 xFIP, 15.4% strikeouts, allowing a 4.88% home run rate this year on 8.3% barrels, 39.9% hard hits. This used to be the one thing that he, was fairly reliable for, even when he was in his diminished form last year before. Well, not so much this year in a 2-inning sample, I guess. But last year, 2.48% home run rate, was much better at limiting hard hits. Not a good strikeout option. Not a great option for runs, but much better than he was this year. He's still sustainably good at not walking people, not getting himself into trouble. But when it doesn't come with any strikeouts and when it comes with some home run issues, and he's making his first start in forever, so what are we talking about? Probably 5 innings. I really don't see the need to go to a $6,000 Noah Syndergaard, $6,800 Noah Syndergaard. And I have a lot of reasons that I want to go to the Astros. For one, on FanDuel at least, they're pretty damn affordable. $4,000 for Jordan Alvarez, $5,900. You just average that down by putting him in play with some of the Jeremy Peñas, the Alex Bregmans of the world. Even Altuve's fairly cheap over there. Peña hasn't been good, but $2,600 for a key shortstop to help average down the cost of these other guys is a value. Kyle Tucker at $5,700, $3,600, probably a couple bucks cheap on both sides. He should be priced, well, Alvarez should probably be $200-300 more on DK is really what it is, and then Tucker can go up to where Alvarez is priced on this slate. Alvarez is one of the best hitters in baseball. You're getting him a couple $100 cheap here, arguably a couple $100 cheap on FanDuel as well. All three of these guys have 18 home runs. Alvarez has done it in half the plate appearances that the other two have. 18.6% barrels, 54% hard hits. Definitely sign up for some Jordan Alvarez against Noah Syndergaard here. Massive home run upside. Not shining through the model because there's enough history of Syndergaard being good at limiting home runs over the course of his career in there that it kind of caps it here. But this version of Syndergaard, I think, is much more attackable than it might look like. No Chas McCormick in the lineup. That blows. You do have Jose Abreu, who's really come around over the last month and a half. He's up to 10 home runs, 82 WRC plus. Playable part now for still cheap, $3,700, $2,800. Jainer Diaz has been good as a catcher, $38.28. Corey Julks has been okay. Jake Myers has been okay. 85 and a 96 WRC plus for those two guys. 6 homers, 15 steals for Julks, 7 and 5 for Myers. They're playable mix-in options for cheap prices that help to average down those salaries. Altuve, I know I mentioned him as a potentially a little cheap bit of a discount on him, but he's a superstar second baseman. 7 home runs and 5 steals with a 226 ISO, creating runs 43% better than average in 159 plate appearances this year, and was a star throughout his career, including last year. It's not like he's diminished. Last year, 604 plate appearances for Altuve, slash 300, 387, 533, 28 homers, 18 steals, 233 ISO, 164 WRC plus. That was a very Jose Altuve kind of a year. So happy to go to Altuve whenever he's in the lineup. I hope that the Astros go a little bit under the public radar. They were carrying a 5.13 implied total. I just hope that maybe the Syndergaard name recognition, people think that maybe there's a reason to avoid Astros, but probably not. They'll probably be popular. I think it's a very good spot to go to Astros. They create runs without hitting home runs, but they do have home run upside here. Guardians on the other side going up against JP France. He's moderately playable, I think, at 7,100 on DK. Not really at all at 87 on FanDuel. Kind of that low-end Kyle Gibson level projection here. One of the guys on the slate that could give you a handful of points for the low cost, and maybe you buy a bat that makes up the rest of it for you. But he's a low-end option. 2.87 ERA, a 4.62 xFIP, 16.7% strikeouts. Okay on the walk rate, marginal whip, not really good for swinging strikes or throwing strikes at all. Marginal contact at 7.5% barrels, 36.2% hard hits is pretty good, 2.87% home runs is good, but kind of a low-end option if we're hunting for that value guy. I don't know that he's it. The Guardians, for all their flaws, they are good at limiting strikeouts, so it kind of takes that upside away from JP France when he's already a low-end strikeout guy. They're sequencing better. They've been playing a little bit better overall. Several of these guys are at or approaching the waterline for run creation on the season. Steven Kwan's pulling himself together at a 106 WRC+. He's up to a 350 on base now, so he's only got like 20 points to get to where I've been calling for him to get to, but he's on his way. 17 steals for Andres Jimenez in the second spot in the lineup, 13 for Jose Ramirez. It's a team with speed. It's a team with a little bit of pop. 18 homers for Ramirez, 15 for Naylor, 11 for Josh Bell in a down year, but Josh Bell only costs 3,200 across sites. He and Naylor are a decision point on the DK slate at first base. Another $1,300 difference for not the same player, because Naylor's been so much better in terms of the hit tool, the on-base skills this year. But when we talk about home run potential, when we talk about bat-on-ball skills, premium contact, Josh Bell is every bit the hitter that Josh Naylor is. So if you can get him and use the rotation, use the salary increase, savings rather, to buy a better pitcher or whatever, you're not making a huge pivot there. I think they're both playable. So if Bell's at 2% ownership versus a Naylor at 15, not that those are their numbers today, I think you are buying a nice little ownership discount by going to Bell there. 9.8% barrels, 42.6% hard hits, both better than what Naylor's done. Obviously, the average is lower, the on base is lower, the actual slugging percentage is lower, the ISO is lower, the runs creation number is lower, and the home run total is lower. But I think they are similar enough hitters that you're not making a mistake if you need to make that pivot. You should have shares of both of them across Guardian stacks. Will Brennan for 2,600, 2,700, 262, 297, 372, 17% worse than average. At least he's cheap. Gabriel Arias, no contact skills whatsoever, but a ton of power on the odd chance that he makes contact. 2,200 shortstop outfield on DK, 2,300 first base, third base, shortstop on FanDuel. Probably a little bit more valuable on the FanDuel slate, but definitely a piece of value on both sites. If he happens to connect, he could definitely hit a home run tonight. Major power potential. 4 homers in 177 plate appearances. Not great output in the triple slash. Not great output in the run creation department. 41.8% hard hits at least. Only 6.1% barrels. Strikes out 31.6% of the time. Very, very flawed bat, but one with tremendous power in it. Bo Naylor behind the plate. A lot of pop for him. 4 home runs in 86 plate appearances. Playable catcher. Miles Straw as a defender. So it was Astro stacks. Smaller portions, but still some Guardian stacks. Small doses. Minor shares of JP France as like a dart throw SP2 on DK for value. Not a great spot for him. No real interest in him at 87 on FanDuel. And that is with somebody who's been targeting the Guardians lineup a little bit this year. Although since they've come around, I've kind of put the brakes on that. Pods in the Rockies. Let's see if we got lineups in Coors Field. We do. Boy, we have like all the lineups, everything except for this the last game, the Diamondbacks and Giants. Everything's in. Granted, it's 5:30, so I guess that makes some sense. That was the Padres. Pop these lineups in here real quick. Pods and the Rocks. Oh, that's a sneaky one. All right, so I know that people want to play Seth Lugo at Coors Field. I get it. He's an okay pitcher. 3.62 ERA, a 3.58 xFIP, 23.4% strikeouts, 4.7% walks. All that's very good. 9.1% barrels, 40.2% hard hits, 89.9 miles an hour of exit velo on the average, 3.25% home runs. None of that is tragic, but of course, field that plays more into the ballpark, the big dimensions, the thin air, et cetera, of it being Coors Field, I don't love the spot. We are dealing with a downgraded Rockies lineup that lost C.J. Cron, that lost Randall Grichuk, 2 of their better hitters. They have, let me see if all the guys I wanted to talk about are in here. I think for the most part they are. So the thing about the Lugo situation is that I expect that the Rockies are not going to be all that popular. They've got just below a 5-run total going up against Seth Lugo, who I think is a targetable enough pitcher. Yeah, he's been okay. Yeah, he's okay enough to maybe grab a few shares at cheap prices at Coors Field. But it's not like we're talking about, the second coming of Walter Johnson here. For 6,600, fine. Throw a few darts on DK. 8,600 on FanDuel? I don't know. There are darts I like better. Maybe a few shares, but not many. And the thing that I was getting to is I think I want to play some Rockies bats here with them also being in Coors, with a matchup against Seth Lugo, and with the field kind of probably going away from them, thinking, it's a really bad version. It's a quad A version of the Rockies lineup. Maybe that is the case, but some of those young players are guys that I like. Nolan Jones is the guy that's missing from the lineup, which sucks. He's been their most effective rookie, their most proven rookie so far this season. Good lefty power bat to throw into the mix. So that definitely diminishes the appeal, but they changed him out with Brendan Rodgers from the projected lineup. Brendan Rodgers is formerly a pretty high-end prospect. In 581 plate appearances last year, 13 home runs, 266, 325, 92 WRC plus. 415 the year before, 15 home runs, 186 ISO, exactly at league average creating runs. That's a playable part at second base for 2,500 on FanDuel, 2,400 on DK. That's not a bad bet if you have to replace Nolan Jones in the lineup. Profar sucks in the first spot. I still don't know what the hell they're doing with him in that spot all season long, but there he is. He's playable. Playable for correlation. If you're going to Rocky stacks, he should be in some of them. Ezekiel Tovar, 4,200, 3,200, 10 home runs on the season, 259, 289, 421. Has disappointed in his rookie season, but there's enough potential there. There's enough home run upside, maybe some moderate stolen base upside. Like he's a better option than Profar. It's very close. For less money on FanDuel at shortstop than Profar is in the outfield, I think it's a better buy. For more money than Profar on DK, I think it's a better buy. Correlates well with Ryan McMahon for 4,500, 3,900 for him. Second base, third base on FanDuel. Higher price, but the positional flexibility is good on FanDuel. Stick him at third base on DK. You're doing perfectly fine, though, and that allows you to put Brendan Rodgers for a cheap price at second base. McMahon's their best power hitter, 16 home runs on the season, a 204 ISO. He's on the correct side of splits. I think it's a good spot for some Ryan McMahon. Elias Diaz has been good as a catcher, 10 home runs on the season, 89 WRC plus, but you'll take that when it's a catcher hitting cleanup. It's fine. 273, 330, 423. We're focused on the light power potential, the good contact profile, the cheap price from a catcher, especially where you need to play them. I don't know how many times he lands in my FanDuel lineups. It's just a good spot in the lineup. The guys I want to talk about, Michael Toglia, Eleodoro Montero. Two key power bats for this team at the bottom of the lineup. Let's look at the statistics, if I can find it really quick. So no Nolan Jones. That really definitely sucks. He was like the third man in on that might go unheralded from the bottom of the lineup group that I wanted to get to. But Tolia's got 2 home runs in 65 plate appearances this year. He hit 2 in 120 major league plate appearances this year, but he has 16 on the board in 343 plate appearances in AAA this year. And he hit 32 home runs across AA, AAA, and the 2 major league home runs last year. He's a premium power hitter. He's not fully developed. He has not arrived in the major leagues in any kind of big way, but there's a lot of pop in a bat that's going to be really under-owned at Coors Field. Eleodoro Montero, same boat. 3 homers in 121 this year, 6 in 185 last year, 15 homers in 163 plate appearances at AAA this year, 21 across AAA and the 6 in the show last year. So at a little bit lower end of the power spectrum, but with a better overall hit tool, better, more highly regarded bat, Montero falls into that same bucket. So if I'm going to Rockies, I want to include those two in a abundance of my Rockies stacks. Let's see what else we got in the lineup here. Harold Castro, reasonable line drive hitter type, 270 average, 270 to a 280 average over the past 5 seasons, 3 seasons, whatever it's been. But a respectable enough option for 2,600 at second base on DK, kind of diminishes him. 2,800 with triple position eligibility. I like him a little bit better on FanDuel. He's a playable part on the DK slate, but I think I'd rather have Rodgers for 200 less, hitting in a better position in the lineup on that site. And then Brenton Doyle in the last spot in the lineup. 7 homers, 14 stolen bases, only a 45 WRC plus, 198, 258, 335. A low-end option, but one that we have seen provide counting stats in the right spot. Padres going up against Austin Gomber. I hope people aren't expecting to play Gomber in this spot. I just wouldn't. I know that there was that one game where he succeeded at Coors Field, but overall, a 5.83 ERA, a 4.81 xFIP, a 15.4% strikeout rate in 108 innings, 21 starts. His walk 6.4%, but a 1.44 whip, 8% swinging strikes, 24.2% CSW, 4.71% home runs, 44.9% hard hits. Have I talked everybody out of playing Austin Gomber? When he's at home, 14 of his 22 home runs have been at home. 4.73 xFIP at home, 14.7% strikeout rate at home, a 7.19 ERA at home. He's not a good option. I'm sorry, but no. 5,000 on DK, 6,400 on FanDuel, going up against a lineup that does have Ha-Sung Kim in it. That's excellent. I was expecting no Kim because he took a bump and was day-to-day, but they got him in the lineup, so that's great. 14 homers, 21 steals, an effective leadoff hitter against their stars. Just makes their lineup a little bit deeper, having him in the first spot and then the 4 stars. But all 4 of these guys are, not you, Jake Cronenworth. All 4 of these guys, everybody knows, I think. I'm not breaking any ground here that those are 4-star caliber players, star to superstar caliber players, like 3 superstars and a star. I know Bogarts hasn't been himself this year, but he's pulled himself up to 265, 348, 346, 398. Still above average for run creation. I don't think he slipped below average for run creation all year. 11 homers, 11 steals. Perfectly playable shortstop bat for 4,900, 3,400. He is cheap for his talent. Manny Machado, 5,600, 4,000, 20 home runs on the season, 209, 115 WRC plus. Looks a lot like Manny Machado now. Down first 2 months of the year and has come roaring back to life. Tatis and Soto, 2 superstars, 18 homers for Tatis, 20 for Soto, 154 WRC plus to a 126 for Tatis. Just dynamite. Awesome options in Coors Field. They're going to be wildly popular, I would expect. This entire group is going to be very, very popular. But just play them. Play them. Bolt on Ha-Sung Kim. Jake Cronenworth, Gary Sanchez, playable parts late in the lineup. Trent Grisham, a playable part late in the lineup. Even Matthew Batten for 2,800, 2,500. I don't know how many times we're going to put him at third over Manny Machado, but getting him at first base instead of Jake Cronenworth, you can do that to save a couple thousand. Third base eligible on FanDuel. Probably not going to use him on FanDuel all that frequently, but he's a playable part in their lineup at Coors Field going up against a weak pitcher. Lot of interest in the Padres stack. I expect they're going to be crazy owned, so I'll probably be a little bit below the field, but I'll have tons. But I like the Rockies as well. So I'm on both sides for bats in Coors Field, and I really don't have interest in the pitchers. Padres over the Rockies, but the Rockies are probably a lot more sneaky than the Padres. Let's grab the lineups in the Sox and Mariners game here. I'll pop back into the chat and see what you guys are talking about, see if there's any questions in the next minute or two. Mariners. 5:38. We got to hustle. Oh, shit. I put the Red Sox where the Mariners go. Fix that. And the Sox, I think both of these lineups are essentially the way they were when I wrote the article, the way they were projected, so I don't really see many changes from the take there. This is an interesting game. I think you can go to either one of these pitchers. Nick Pivetta for 66, 8,000. The concern with Pivetta is that most of the quality that you can see here came in his bulk relief role, while most of the downside that you can see here came in his starts as a full starter, and he's making the full start today. I broke it down in the article. I'll go through it real quick. As a full starter, actually, let me do the overall. 4.11 ERA and a 3.96 xFIP with a 29.4% strikeout rate in 81 innings, 8 traditional starts. So that's the overall numbers, which all look good. In the 8 traditional starts, though, as a full starter, a 4.81 xFIP versus a 3.12 xFIP in that bulk relief role. In the bulk relief role, a 36.9% strikeout rate, but as a traditional starter, just a 23%. Spectacular 1.98 ERA in 41 bulk relief innings, but a 6.30 in 40 innings as a traditional starter. That jibes with the difference in the xFIP. There's upside because the Mariners strike out a ton. We've seen a bunch of pitchers succeed of guys of similar talent. I believe that Nick Pivetta is a talented guy. He has been a good starter in his career, good starter in different spots. But given that difference between him this year in traditional starts versus that bulk relief role where he's really excelled, maybe a little bit of reason to be concerned around a guy who still does have, even including those good bulk relief innings, an 11.9% barrel rate, 46% hard hits, 92 miles an hour of exit velo, and a 3.53% home run rate against a team that their plus side is that they hit home runs. Their downside is that they strike out a ton. So I think it's a both-sided spot there, and I think the other way is also a both-sided spot. The Red Sox are just a really good lineup from at least 1 through 6 in this configuration. Who's missing? Duran, Turner, Yoshida, Devers, Casas, Verdugo. No Duvall. Did Duvall get traded? Duvall's also on the trade block. Possibly going back to Atlanta, as we were talking about in the Discord. Somebody mentioned picking up Duvall and James Paxton would be dynamite for this Braves team. Or for the Braves from this Red Sox team. So no Duvall. It's a minor downgrade to them. He's a good power bat, was creating runs very well. But as long as this part of the lineup is intact with Duran, Turner, Yoshida, Devers, Tristan Casas, and Alex Verdugo, I do want to get to some Red Sox here. And I do think it's a ding for George Kirby. He's not a premium strikeout guy, 22.6% strikeouts. I love the pitcher. He's a very, very good pitcher. But I think he's targetable enough with the Red Sox, and he doesn't project at the very top of the board. He's got a good, not great projection. I will have plenty of George Kirby, especially at 86 on DK. That's a cheap price for this pitcher. But he's facing a stout lineup. It's a difficult, challenging matchup for him. There's a lot of low strikeout guys among their best hitters. So for a low strikeout George Kirby facing a low strikeout lineup, he only walks 2.4%, does not get himself into trouble. So they're going to need to create their opportunities, but they're good enough at doing that. Very low strikeout rates for Justin Turner, for Masataka Yoshida. Two guys hitting 287, 356, 483, and 308, 371, 487. Creating runs 26 and 33% better than average. Turner's got 17 home runs. Yoshida's got 12. They both got a handful of stolen bases. They hit behind Jarren Duran, who's been outrageous since moving to the leadoff role. Overall, 315, 365, 507, a 192 ISO, 134 WRC plus. In the leadoff role, Duran's 71% better than average creating runs, 358, 393, 613 with a 255 ISO in 112 plate appearances since moving to the leadoff role. So he's been just dominant for them in that leadoff spot. Creates a really good core up at the top of the lineup. Hold on, let me tell the dog to go lie down. Can you go lie down? We got like 10 minutes left. Please go lie down. He was over here like pulling my hand in the other direction as I was running through that Red Sox lineup a minute ago. So definitely can get invested in some of these Red Sox. Devers is obviously a star, 5,300, 25 home runs. Bit of a down season in the triple slash, but everything else is fine. I'm happy to take shares of Rafael Devers. Casas is going to have an outrageous last 2 months of the season. He's already started 16 home runs, 229 ISO overall, 27% better than average creating runs. Everything about Tristan Casas that was a concern early in the season completely normalized, came around. He is a very good first baseman. He still only costs $3,500 on DK, $34 on FanDuel. It's about the right price right now, but that price will be higher probably by the end of the season. Verdugo, great hit tool from the left side late in the lineup. Guy who can help turn the lineup over. Sets the table for Connor Wong, Pablo Reyes, Yu Chang behind him. Not a great trio. Wong can hit home runs. Yu Chang can hit home runs. Moderate upside for those guys. It's not the greatest bottom third here, but playable parts. Top 6 is excellent for the Red Sox. But definitely get invested in some George Kirby as well. Even at 98 on FanDuel, I definitely want to have some George Kirby. He is good enough to pitch through this lineup. Find himself a few strikeouts, limit opportunities. 6 or 7 innings of like 2-run ball and 4 or 5 strikeouts with a quality start bonus. The Mariners are good enough to beat Pivetta, and maybe Pivetta is a little bit more flawed than he seems like. I think it's a good spot for Kirby. But I will have some Red Sox bats. So all 4 corners of this one. The Mariners going up against Pivetta. I mentioned they have the ability to hit home runs. There's a major power core right here. Julio, Eugenio, Cal, and Teoscar. Average 15 home runs. 17, 14, 14, and 16. Probably could have done that in my head. JP Crawford in the leadoff role. 376 on base. 129 mark for run creation. Correlates really well with that group. He's been good since moving to the leadoff role. 3,400, 2,900 is cheap for him, so I like JP Crawford in that spot. Ty France has been a disappointment with his hit tool, with his lack of power output this season. Only a 100 WRC plus mark, but for 2,800, 3,000, he's a playable enough first baseman on a team that doesn't have another option there. Mike Ford not in the lineup today. Tommy Murphy in the lineup instead of Ford. 2,500, 2,800 as a secondary catcher on this team. We talked about him in conjunction with Cal Raleigh. They do the same things at the plate. They're both major sources of power. They both strike out a lot. Murphy's got 8 home runs with a 285, 328, 577, a 293 ISO, and a 148 WRC plus in 135 plate appearances. I'm not skipping Tommy Murphy if I'm building a bunch of Mariners stacks, which I plan to. Cade Marlowe, 2,800, 2,400. We looked at him in the minors. Multiple seasons of 20 home runs and double-digit steals in the minors. Kind of an interesting playable part for very cheap. 1 home run in 23 plate appearances this year, but 11 in 319 plate appearances at AAA this year. And last year, he's across AA and AAA, 23 home runs and 36 stolen bases. So not a premium prospect for them for whatever reason, but I think he's older, maybe was the case. What was the reason that we didn't like him as a prospect? I forget. Yeah, he's 26. So he put up those numbers at an advanced age in those leagues. That's what the one concern would be. 25-year-old in AA, 20 home runs, 36 stolen bases. Yeah, all right, that's, you're 25 playing in AA. So maybe you temper expectations a little bit, but it's not like we're paying for any expectations whatsoever at 2,800, 2,400. So I think he's a good playable part in the outfield here. He's already got a home run, 2 steals to justify what I'm saying in his 23 plate appearances. Why the hell not? Jose Caballero, decent on base skills, 353 on base over 204 plate appearances, 18 steals. Maybe a decent little wraparound play back up to the top. Maybe you use him, skip Crawford, and go directly into the power core. You could use him and Crawford, but that becomes a more questionable configuration. That's more playable in a 5-man on DK than a 4-man on FanDuel. So all 4 corners of this one. Probably, how did I write it up? This is another one where I wouldn't really argue with any ranking. I think 3 of the 4 parts should be above Nick Pivetta, no matter how you rank it. I had it in the article as George Kirby, then Mariners bats, then Red Sox bats. I think I'll stick to that. I kind of think the Mariners are a sneaky opportunity here. I don't know what Pivetta's ownership looks like. If he gets owned at 66 on DK, I think you can target that a little bit with some Mariners bats, especially if they're low owned in conjunction with it. It could be a spot where he blows up a little bit unexpectedly. I'm not sure what other sites are doing with him. He projects out only okay in my model, and we looked at the ugly numbers in his traditional starts this year. So maybe a guy who's just been in a role this year where he's just better in that bulk relief spot. But good opportunities on all sides. Certainly there's an argument to be made that Kirby's going to have a very limiting effect on that Red Sox lineup, but I like them. I don't prefer them, but I like them in this spot, and I'm going to have a decent amount of them. So good amount of George Kirby, good amount of Sox, good amount of Mariners. Mix and match Nick Pivetta. Last game up. No lineups for this one yet. Let's try and make some good time here. It is 5:48. Looks like we're going to have a 6 o'clock start to lineup building today. That's fine. Plenty of time. And it's not a crazy day with those 14 gamers hang up the optimizers a little bit. These 8 and 9 gamers are okay. So Ryan Nelson, I have no real interest. I could see him having an okay start against the Giants here. He projects in that Kyle Gibson kind of a range where if you want to throw a few darts at 6,200, 7,000, you can. 4.97 ERA, 5.14 xFIP, only walking 6.9%, but only striking out 15.4, allowing 42.9% hard hits, 10.7% barrels, 91.2 miles an hour of exit velo, and a 3.74 home run rate. Kind of more inclined to look toward Giants bats, I think. Some of those lefty power hitters in that lineup are probably a pretty big threat to Ryan Nelson here. Alex Cobb against the Diamondbacks on the other side. He's in play. Projects out in that second tier at 28 on the FanDuel scale. 22% strikeout rate, 2.97 ERA, and a 3.31 xFIP are sparkling. Those are great numbers. He's only allowing 1.76% home runs because he's spectacular at limiting launch angle, limiting barrels. Did the same thing last year, did the same thing the year before. Alex Cobb is very good at limiting home runs. Doesn't mean you can't hit a home run against him. Just reduces the probability of the Diamondbacks bats hitting home runs, and you can see that in the home run model. A lot of these guys cut way down. Their key power bats cut way down for home run potential. It could be the game where we get 6-7 clean innings out of Alex Cobb. He gives up 3-4 runs. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he gives up 4, so he doesn't get you the quality start on FanDuel, but the Diamondbacks didn't explode. I see this one in a lot of rolls of the dice kind of falling into that range because the Diamondbacks are really good at limiting strikeouts. They're really good at hitting for power, sequencing and creating runs. So there's enough opportunity even without the home run upside, but there's not a massive opportunity for them to blow up Alex Cobb. He's not blow up proof, but he doesn't blow up all that frequently. So it's kind of a limiting impact on both sides. I think they limit his ceiling. I think he limits theirs. I think you can go to it. I will mix in a little bit of Cobb because he only cost $8,900. It's an even better buy at $8,000 on the DK slate. I certainly like him a hell of a lot more than Ryan Nelson. I expect him to have a good shot at the win, good shot at the quality start here. So there is upside for him. It's a better ceiling than I think the Diamondbacks have, but I think it's a limited ceiling. Diamondbacks, you're going to need them to sequence. You're going to need them to focus on that ability to not strike out, reach first base, and then drive each other in. And they're very good at that. Very good on base numbers up here. Very low strikeout rates for most of their key hitters. Average strikeout rate of just 20%. That includes Josh Rojas's 23.6. It includes Carson Kelly's 29.2 over 72 plate appearances. If you drop Kelly out of it, 18.9. Rojas is over 216. He's enough a part of the team that we'll leave him in. So an 18% strikeout team, it's a very good team in terms of limiting strikeouts. If you're going here, you're looking for Perdomo, Marte, Corbin Carroll, Christian Walker, and then either of these guys are good. I prefer Gurriel, but Dominic Canzone can provide you a little bit of sneaky pop for a very low price. $2,100, $2,400, hitting fifth probably in that lineup. That's a sneaky enough lefty bat that I'll use him a decent amount in my stacks of Diamondbacks, assuming that he's hitting here. If he's hitting down here, he's a lot less interesting. Lourdes Gurriel's provided a ton of power. Not a lot in terms of the hit tool, the on base this year. Still on 96 WRC plus, but a lot of pop. 15 home runs, 46.4% hard hits. Christian Walker is a dominant power hitter, 22 home runs on the season, 255 ISO. Only strikes out 18.8% of the time. Carroll's a star, toolsy, five tool type, 282, 361, 541. Creating runs 40% better than average. 21 homers, 32 steals. The definition of a five tool player. Ketel Marte, one of the better second basemen in the game, 17 homers, 296, 375, 513. Excellent options up and down the Diamondbacks lineup. I expect Alex Cobb to have that limiting effect on what their ceilings are. The Giants on the other side, they're very cheap. They're on that value board for sure going up against Ryan Nelson here. They ranked out like mid-board for actually, wow, surprisingly low. I got to check how that averaged out. It's lower than I thought their value marks would be because they don't cost that much. I guess it's more since it's points per dollar. It's actually more cut down by their point averages than it is their pricing. I think that at least these top guys are cheap for their talents on both sites. Being able to get Jock Peterson, Michael Conforto with all their lefty power against a Ryan Nelson, those are bargain prices for those two hitters. J.D. Davis from the right side, he's been better against right-handed pitchers than he has against left-handed pitchers this year. So there's an argument to be made for J.D. Davis being cheap. Lamont Wade with his on-base skills, his correlated scoring ability is cheap. So I think these guys are probably cheaper than they looked at in the tools because the overall collective averages are kind of dragged down by the Patrick Baileys, Luis Matos's, Blake Sables, Casey Schmitz, and Brandon Crawfords of the world when we come to just average fantasy point pricing. That's what the red and black dots there are. So it's a weaker bottom end, but it's a playable one. There's definitely playable power in this lineup. You can mix and match the guys like Matos, like Bailey. Blake Sable's got believable lefty power, 12.4% barrels, 11 home runs, and 252 plate appearances. Catcher and outfield eligibility, so you can play him and Bailey if you want to on the DK slate. Bailey's come back to earth, 254, 286, 413, 89 WRC plus now. But he had that good little run, and he's been a fairly productive player in a small sample. So no real love for Ryan Nelson. Going to go to... I'm reading the start. Cobb's out? Shit. All right. My bad, guys. Is Cobb out and Junis is getting a full start, or Cobb's out and he's going to be in bulk relief? All right. Shit. Thought I was going to be able to punch out of here. Sorry, guys. I know I said I was going to come back to the chat, and I did not. Cannon got scratched too? Jesus. All right, so it's Chase Silseth going for the Angels. That changes nothing about the take on the Braves. But obviously you lose Griff Canning, and Chase Silseth is not playable. Yep, I've caught up to that now, Dorian. Thank you. Cobb and Canning both out. I know. I'm trying to grab Jacob Junis real quick here. Joker, go lie down, buddy. Got stuff to do. What can I use for Junis' sample here real quick? Try this. Actually, screw it. I'm not gonna bother dropping him in because it's just gonna be a spot where it's just going to turn into you can use the Diamondbacks a hell of a lot more than you were using them against Alex Cobb. Jacob Junis on the season, a 3.70 xFIP, a 4.79 ERA, 26.7% strikeouts in 56 and a third innings. He's made exactly 0 traditional starts. He's maxed out at 3 innings on the season. He's done that multiple times. I don't think we're seeing Jacob Junis for more than 3 innings here. I'm not sure what they're bringing in after him. If it's Alex Cobb in a bulk relief role, then that still applies against the Diamondbacks. Assuming that it's just a handful of bullpen arms or whatever, then I think you can go to the Diamondbacks a little bit more enthusiastically here. And it's all what I was saying about these guys with excellent power, good on base skills, low strikeout rates. All of that applies and is now much, much more interesting considering it's Jacob Junis here. If I did this, no, if I do this, it'll just show us his stats. It's not going to change the model. So uptick for the Diamondbacks for sure. Based on that, move them up in your rankings, move them up for power. No change to the Giants side except for losing a playable pitcher off the board. Tough to keep up with some of those changes when they happen during the show, fellas. I appreciate the heads up there. I wish I had caught it a little bit sooner. And Kenzone got traded? Oh, how about that? All right, so no Kenzone in that lineup. All right. Let's look at the pitching board. Obviously, we're ignoring Griff Canning, but he was down here. And we are ignoring, what's-his-face, who was up here and loses a decent pitcher off the board. Jacob Junis would land down in this territory. So you can fully ignore him. I have no love for the Colorado pitchers. Seth Lugo is here. Austin Gomber is here. I think that's realistic. I'm going to bats on both sides of that one. San Diego, despite popularity. Colorado, what I'm hoping is going to be low popularity. Working up the board, I do think Kyle Gibson has a little bit of playability from the very bottom of the board. Like, this is the cut point for the possible dart throws. And I would actually rank him above both Jake Irvin and Ryan Nelson, but probably below JP France. JP France is more expensive, a little bit more difficult to get to. Tough matchup for strikeouts. I don't really see a lot of upside. Does he do it, 1 time in 10 if we roll this slate 10 times? Maybe, but not much. The D-backs got Sewald. That's a great pickup for them. He's an awesome relief pitcher. Canzone for Sewald straight up. It's a weird trade. I know the Mariners were saying they were probably going to deal Sewald. They thought that the bullpen was good enough to get through it, and they weren't too worried about it. But that's an interesting return. Curious to see. I gotta look that trade up after I get off here. Pivetta, I talked about the flaws. Obviously, has been pitching well in the bulk relief role, but now back to the traditional starter role, assuming that didn't also change during the show. Definitely upside in my mind for the Seattle Bats, some of that home run power, but he could easily go out and have a good game. I believe in Pivetta's projection here. I think he's the true cut point for quality. Johnny Brito doesn't belong here. I didn't sort the board after I popped Johnny Brito back in when he changed for Domingo Germán. So excuse that. Johnny Brito's down here. I don't see potential for Johnny Brito going up against that Tampa Bay team. He's a non-major league pitcher going up against a very good lineup. I want a lot of Tampa Bay. Bassett is in the same boat as like Pivetta, playable, but a lot of warts, a lot of question marks. Could give you a lot of clean innings, though. Believe in the projection here, and 7,500 is a great discount on DK. I don't love paying 91 for him on FanDuel. I'll have a few shares probably, unless it just gets completely sorted out by my process. George Kirby is a definitely playable part against Boston. Little bit more ceiling than this probably against Boston, but they're very dangerous as well. So that's a both sides-er for me. Alex Cobb's not on the board anymore. Charlie Morton going up against the Angels. Definite upside, but definite, I want to have some Angels bats. I talked about them potentially being a sneaky spot. Getting Grichuk and CJ Cron into that lineup. A lot of bats in that lineup that I like. And Morton not quite pitching like Charlie Morton this year in terms of the walks, in terms of a little bit of power. So I think there's a good reason to consider the Angels in addition to the Braves in heavy rotation Braves going up against now Chase Silseth, one of the dominant stacks of the day. That very well might have pushed the Braves out and beyond where the Padres were if I re-ranked the board. For Rojas, Canson, and a player would be a name later. Interesting. Marcus Stroman, I like that spot a great deal. I think this is an excellent value price. Him and Abbott ranked right next to each other on the board in that game. Abbott, obviously, for more money, I think is in play very much against Chicago. He's been pitching over his head, as we looked at, but he's been doing it and he's been getting away with it, and I think I'm going to have some. That said, I'd much rather pay, if I'm paying in the 10s, I'd much rather just pay for the 2 stars in Tyler Glasnow and Corbin Burns, and then I'll take my discounted salary with Marcus Stroman. If you told me you were cutting your slate at these 3 guys, there's enough of a value price on Stroman, especially on DK, that you can just mix and match him with Tyler Glasnow shares and Corbin Burns shares, and you're not completely crazy. It's not the right way to attack a slate. You definitely want some Abbott. You definitely want some Morton, some Kirby, some arguably Pivetta and Bassett in there, but it's not a deep slate, and those are easily the best options on it. Coors might not even play. We're getting that now. You guys just want to keep me on. That's all. Keep me on the air. Less than an hour to build my lineups now. Let's take a quick peek at weather. I thought we didn't have weather concerns today. A flood watch. Widespread thunderstorms likely during the game. Blech. Keep an eye on Colorado. That seems to be the threatening one. New York's fine. I'd be going to the game if I was going. I'm going tomorrow. Washington's that the other one on the list. He's got it. Roth has a green, so it seems fine. But if they get rain before the game starts, they're that paranoid team that cancels games quickly and has a weird trigger. So who knows? Keep an eye on the Colorado game for rain. At least it doesn't start till 8:40. So on FanDuel, you've got the opportunity to pivot out if it does PPD. I'm going to leave it in. I'm going to hope for the best. All right, guys. With that said, good luck out there tonight. Apologies for missing a couple things as changes were made during the show, but definitely appreciate you guys chiming in and informing me about those. I got to do a better job keeping an eye on the chat. Larry, I think it was Larry said I need a second monitor, and that would be helpful, but then I'd also have to just remember to look over here all the time, so who knows. But I'm going to hit goodbye. Goodbye. Good luck. Somebody go win something.